And we are live. Hey, everyone. This is Sarah Boynton with another day in the life with BioBuzz. And we are here with someone I deeply admire. He has been a huge part of my past and future, just introducing me to human performance concepts and being a true leader in changing and supporting how operations are done. So I am so excited to welcome John Wilkes. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us your time and insights into what you do. We will jump right into it. And why don't you go ahead and just briefly introduce yourself, where you're at right now, and what your role is in the biotech industry.
Well, thanks, Sarah. It's really my pleasure to be here. So I'm John Wilkes. I'm the Senior Director for Business Excellence at Novavax, and I've been there just about a little over 2 years. So it's been quite an interesting run.
All right. And what is, give us a little insight. What is your kind of day to day? What does that entail?
Yeah. I like to describe business excellence as building capabilities and capacities in people, processes, and systems. So, we really serve the organization by helping the organization perform better. That's, really the nuts and bolts of it.
Okay. And for some of the people who are watching and may not have an idea of business excellence or even human performance, give us a little bit into what you mean by helping them perform better. What metrics are you looking at? What teams are you working with to kind of understand where the business is and what it needs to do to improve?
Oh, sure. Well, that's such a huge question because it really spans the entire operation. And so, it's for a lot of companies, um, it's a real benefit to have an internal group like a business excellence or an operational excellence team that can really serve as kind of internal consultants and help the business with particular challenges that they may have. So this may be, we have too many deviations in a particular area, and so can you help us understand what's happening here and reduce this number? This could be problems such as we're not getting enough throughput through a particular process. Can you help us diagnose what's going on in our process? This could be we need to build capabilities in some of our personnel around problem solving or investigation approaches. Can you help us with this? We need to save money. Can you help us with that? So, really the opportunity is quite broad. It really comes down to, what are the challenges and the opportunities and the needs that any part of the business may have at any time.
Right.
And being available to support that.
So do you see an organization like a biotech manufacturing facility, a CDMO, what would you say the level of interconnectedness is? If one change happens upstream, how does that affect downstream? And where does your role kind of fit into that broader, higher, looking from a mile above to see as we make changes to efficiencies in the process or, helping our personnel? What is the interconnectedness like at an organization and how important is that?
So it can be very, very connected. For the most part, if we bring a process-oriented mindset to what we're doing, every process has, inputs, outputs, suppliers of those inputs, users of those outputs. And so as we embark on particular improvements or problem solving, it becomes really important to understand who those downstream customers are and how they will utilize or benefit or frankly may be interrupted or harmed by what happens further upstream. So it's really important to bring a very holistic look, at least a couple of customers downstream, to make sure that, whatever you do, whatever improvements you do in one area, don't have some unanticipated consequences.
Yeah.
So it's very connected.
Yeah, exactly. And I know it was like myself being in manufacturing, sometimes you forget to think about that when you're in a department. And that's why something like an OpEx team or business excellence team is able to do that. They see all of the strings moving and all of the viewpoints and are able to say, hey, manufacturing, if you make that change, now supply chain's going to need to adjust their schedule or adjust their actions. And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's really great.
Absolutely. It's it's good, and it's a bit of a curse sometimes, right? Because you
Yeah.
have, because you have perhaps a more expansive view on some things, you're able to see problems before others, realize that,
Or want to admit that.
or want to, exactly, or want to admit that. And so then you get in a little bit of trying to convince some groups that, hey, you're going to create some problems here. um you need to walk back your thinking before, until we can get some good alignment further downstream.
Yeah, very good point, which not everyone wants to do. Not everyone wants to take a few steps back when everyone's moving at the speed of light. A lot of organizations are building the plane as they're flying, which I think I got that saying from you.
I,
But-
I hope not. I hope not. It's a saying I've come to learn, frankly, um, because
Why?
it goes with a couple, right? A couple of my favorite phrases. No one has the time to do it right the first time, but we always have time to do it over. Um, so, um, and then my other favorite one is surgery before diagnosis is malpractice.
Mm,
And so, um, which really speaks to the point of, whenever you're doing problem solving, or whenever you're trying to do some kind of improvements, you really have to take the time to understand what's, as holistically as possible, what's, what the impacts of those activities are going to be. So, in a large respect, it kind of speaks to the power of small incremental improvements, which is
mm.
something that operational excellence, really champions, rather than that big change that can have, unintended consequences far beyond where we expect. Smaller incremental changes, we can control, we can do those faster, we can see benefit faster, and gain momentum for those bigger changes. So
Very good. Very good point. So what got you into this type of position? Where did you start in the industry? I don't think anyone ever starts in OpEx. Yeah.
yeah, sure. Well, some do. um and they're probably special. For me personally, I started as a bench technician. I was doing, cell culture work, maintaining cell cultures and cell banks and banks and virus stocks, and running cell culture based QC viral detection assays.
Mm.
So, I I I know how to use a pipette,
Yes. What's
which
the meniscus then?
that's right. It's the smile face in the flask.
Oh, I love
Uh,
that.
so yeah, so I go all the way back there. But I knew, as much as I enjoyed my time back in the lab, I knew that that wasn't where I was going to be forever. And so, I was fortunate enough to have some advocacy in my organization, that you know gave me an opportunity to work in the quality assurance space.
Oh,
So
great.
I spent a lot of time in quality assurance, and that's really where, you know I think a lot of my career really began to form, in terms of, quality systems and improvement. I was always kind of an improvement guy, even going back as a kid. I was always looking for ways to do things better and faster. Um, but moving into these spaces kind of gave me the opportunity to, uh, to apply that thinking professionally. And so from the quality space, I moved into manufacturing ops, and got a little closer to the work, which was cool, because I finally got to take the position of living under some of those rules I was imposing as a quality professional, and that gave me an entirely new appreciation for what it meant to be in operations. And I've really come to have a fondness for operations. Um, from there, I had some opportunities to go into operational excellence, um, which was good. Went into some enabling functions, um, and then moved into this particular position of business excellence. I think, which is kind of a combination of both. Business performance as well as operations performance. So a nonlinear path.
Yeah.
I think the best way really to describe it was, I was fortunate to be in roles where um, my skills matched up with, needs of the organization at a particular time.
Very
And I
cool.
was able to exploit that for, some career benefit, and personal and professional growth. So
Very good. Yeah. You gotta see kind of you kind of got to live where you are for a moment before you can move to the next step, in the sense that, especially in our industry, because I started as a manufacturing operator. I'm just like you. I always was looking for ways to improve the process, but I think you almost need to live parts of the process before you can move into OpEx. That's why I joked about, like, not many people start in OpEx. You get the passion for improvement when you've lived in the mud, when you've lived
yeah,
in
yeah,
the stuff that's not working.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for it's important to realize that the days of the linear climbing the ladder are probably long gone. I'm sure they exist somewhere, but I think a lot of organizations and industries, frankly, uh, get more value out of the employees who have a much broader, um, you know, experience profile, um, and that allows them to serve many many needs, as
Yeah.
well as develop in many different ways. So it's both beneficial, um, for organizations, but it's beneficial personally
Yeah,
as
it goes
well.
I think it goes
Yeah,
back to that interconnectedness, you
yeah,
know? You
yeah.
can really feel what that empathetic side, you can feel what someone else is feeling. Um, so walk us through what kind of decisions you have to make. What are you kind of muddling with every day? And I know you talked a little bit about process efficiencies. What are some of those decisions, and what do they look like?
Sure. Well, most of our decisions in our role comes down to you know what improvements do we need to apply now. So usually the priority ranking goes around what is going to drive the organization's goals and objectives, first and foremost. Second, what's going to drive daily delivery of the business. um, Hopefully my boss is not watching, but what he wants is probably third. um, but that's only third because if it's not one or two, which is what he's after, then it's the catch-all. So yeah, organizations, goals and objectives, what's going to help daily operations, and then what are other needs and opportunities that exist in the business that we can help on. So the decisions we're making are, where do we put our very limited resources uh, on? And so we're looking for impact. One of my dear colleagues that I work with today, um, he gave me a phrase that will stick with me forever, and that's speed to value ratio. Right. So
Mm.
what can we do quickly that's going to bring value, And again, I think that goes back to that idea of, the power of small wins. So,
Yes.
we're not always going to be prioritizing around what's the biggest project
Mm.
we can do. A lot of times it's going to be what can we do quickly that's going to bring value, push the organization in the right direction. Um, so those, that probably characterizes our, the vast majority of the decisions that we make.
Decisions. What kind of tools are you using? Are there specific OpEx tools or even programs that you use to help you make these decisions, to decide speed to value, risk analysis, whatever it may be? Kind of what are those day-to-day tools you may use or use cross-functionally?
Sure. So um, aside from the litany of business process and operational excellence tools, the most important tool that an operational excellence or business excellence professional can bring is curiosity. Okay,
I
use your
love that.
brain and be curious, right? So have a thirst for understanding what's happening. Uh, once those areas of opportunity have been identified, then there's all kinds of problem solving tools and data analysis tools. From a software standpoint, pretty much like everyone else, we live primarily in the Office 365 world. For some more sophisticated problems and analysis, you'll get into things like Minitab or MATLAB or other data um, and process modeling tools that'll help you see that. But at the end of the day, there's nothing better than uh, a clipboard, a pen, and a stopwatch, and a calculator. And if you can do that and have those tools, and you can figure out, um, cost and time and speed and things that need to be done. So, uh, you know, bring your pen, bring your clipboard, and bring your curiosity, and you'll
I
you'll
love
have
that.
you'll have 90% of the tools you need.
I think here, yeah, and it's something. Sometimes in our industry, because everything is so controlled, it's hard to get curiosity out of people. People are so, rigid and trying to stick to
Yes.
the procedures, but you and I both know sometimes we write procedures for compliance and not for what work is actually done. And so having the clipboard and the pen and going out into the field, you can level set your processes to how the work is actually done and ensure compliance that way. So I guess for some people who are watching this who may think, I'm interested in operational excellence. What is one thing they may, research or get involved with that they can, start thinking about some of these ideas and efficiencies? Just maybe some self learning or education on their own.
Uh, yeah. So what I would encourage people to do, you can pretty much every group under the sun exists on LinkedIn. So you can probably just search, improvement or lean or something like that, and you'll find any number of groups that you can join. So I would recommend that. There's um, there's some seminal works out there. The machine that changed the world, about the Toyota production system. If somebody wanted to, take a read at that, would be one. We live in a world today where you can watch videos on anything too. So get on YouTube and search for things there. Um, but we'll just go back to the idea of curiosity, right? I mean, if you're doing a project around the house and you're wondering how can I do this faster, or better, then you're on your way to that kind of thinking. And so um, that'll give one an opportunity to and a basis to ask some questions to the Google machine, or something like that. But it does really come down to um, you know, how do I drive improvement? Even asking, Chat GPT a question, what are some improvement methodologies? You'll get a ton of information um, out there. And so I would do that. And then I would recommend within any of those groups on LinkedIn, just build some connections and build some, build your own network. One of the things that I found very, very surprising, what I know today versus when I was starting out, was that the number of people who are just willing to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Very
you
good
know,
point.
what do you want to know kind of situation. And they'll take time with you and tell you all kinds of information to help you out. So build that network.
Yeah, great point. Anytime you can get people who've done it, who've lived it, and can share kind of those personal learning stories. I love sharing my own, what happened to me. And people, like you said, people love to anyone who's thirsty for knowledge, they love giving it out. So I think that's a great, suggestion. Check LinkedIn, follow John, connect with John. Um, what are some of the challenges you face in your role? Business excellence, OpEx teams, they're not at every organization. It's a sign the organization's ready to kind of, really build quality by design documents and processes. But what are the challenges you face as in this role?
There can be lots of challenges in this role. First of all, you know, you're you're an enabling function. You're in the you're in the A part of the SG&A expense line. So, when organizations are looking to cut costs, it's real easy to cut the business excellence or the operational excellence team because they're overhead, right? And so one of the things that's becomes a really important challenge for people in these kinds of roles is to make sure that you're returning value, returning improvement back to the business. That and ideally you're doing so in a very hard currency kind of way, where you can say, hey, look, we return value of 10x what this department costs. That's a challenge. Um, but like we said earlier, you know, resisting the temptation for the big home run
Yeah,
project over lots of singles. Those uh, small wins that come rapidly, that add up quick. That's important because people like the home run, they like the big project, they like the big win. So you have to try to manage that, which goes along with the idea of managing expectations.
yeah,
So many of the challenges that um, organizations deal with are problems that have manifested over many many years.
yes.
Yet we have an expectation that these things will get fixed in 90 days, and that can be a challenge too. So really being realistic, and making sure that your customers and your sponsors, um, coaching them to make sure that they have some realistic expectation too. Those tend to be some of our bigger challenges.
Yeah. And how important is it for the senior leadership, the people who are the voice at the site, to support OpEx, to be a consistent voice around it, to oversee and challenge people against some of these concepts and expectations and standards? Like, is it a bottom up or a top down? Do you think?
So operational excellence, human and organizational performance, these are philosophies and cultures more than they are uh, a collection of tools or practices.
I like
Um,
that.
and so, as a result of that, it's critically important that the senior leadership team, um, in thought and deed, uh, represent these philosophies. Otherwise, it'll never it'll never get as far down into the organization as it needs to. So it's definitely a top down. Now, I want to make sure we get this right. Okay. It's a top down standpoint from the, um, you know, linking it to our values in our organization, um, demonstrating those critical behaviors that we want to see in others down in the organization.
Yes.
Um, that's the way. That's the top down approach, not a dictum.
Okay.
Okay, that's critical, um, because the reality is that some of these things can be done from the bottom up, but they're only going to go so far because
Right.
eventually, the changes or the improvements that are needed have to get validated by those in those senior leader positions. And
Right.
so, um, you can do a little bit of a blister technique, bottom up and top down. But I think for these things to really have the penetration that they need, and then to create that culture that's needed, they really have to be uh, espoused from the top down.
Agreed. Yeah, I watched a video recently where I can't remember her name. She's a big trainer on LinkedIn courses, but she was talking about behavioral change. And she said the biggest part of it is identity. You have to change your identity to that that person or that thing you want to be, which goes back to the top down, linking it to the values, linking it to the organization's mission. We want to be this organization that succeeds, does things with the human in mind, make sure our procedures and our processes align with the standard and help people succeed. And so it's defining that identity and what those behaviors and skills and techniques look like with that new identity to get people to shift to that. Does that resonate with you and kind of what your goals are in your role?
Yeah, sure. So, very much so, right? I think it always starts with an understanding of, uh, at least, well, either, personally or professionally. It starts with an idea of what are the results that you want to see. What is it that you want to accomplish? Um, Once you understand that, and look, that's not easy. Knowing what you want to accomplish is
So
not
true.
is it's not as cut and dry as we'd like to think it is. Um, so you have to put some effort there. But once that's done, then you have to start thinking about, what are those key behaviors, those critical behaviors that are going to allow me or allow my organization to begin to realize those results. Um, once you've got that done, then you have to create the opportunities where those behaviors can now be practiced and
Mm,
utilized, right? So, if we want to be, um, if we want to have outstanding results, and not just, outstanding results is too soft. We want to be, 99% on time with all deviations. Let's just use deviations as an example. Um, then, so what are the key behaviors that we need to have in order to get those kinds of results? Um, so, we need to be triaging things rapidly. We need to have uh, processes in place that allow us to track progress,
mhm.
and track progress routinely. Okay, so we'll just stick with those two. All right, so then what are the opportunities that we need to create for those two behaviors? Well, we're probably going to have people who are capable of responding and triaging immediately. So does that mean it's, quality on the floor? Do we build capability in our manufacturing staff, and the middle management to be able to do that? Those are ways that we could create those opportunities. Along the tracking, okay, great. If we're going to monitor on a daily basis, then what do we have in the organization that allows us to do that today? Do we have a tier process
Mm,
that we can use? Do we have a visual board that we can put things on. So it's not just a matter of knowing your results and knowing your behaviors. You have to create an environment and opportunities where the behaviors can be applied to get you the results that you want. So
yeah, it's not just do it this way. You have to provide the right tools and the environment for that behavior to
right.
proliferate.
Yes, that's a word you could use.
Yeah, if you want people to wipe equipment on their and wipe materials in the airlock, for another example, you have to have cleaning materials in the airlock, and they have to be
Exactly.
within expiry and available all the time, or else you and I both know humans will take shortcuts. It's just we have to conserve the energy we have during the day. So yeah, I love that. It's not just defining those behaviors, it's setting up the environment and the people, and providing them what they need to actually exhibit and have those behaviors proliferate. That's really good.
Right.
And what is the role of positive reinforcement, do you think, when it comes to, identifying and, praising or even coaching those behaviors?
Oh, it's critical, right? I mean, we all, everyone likes a cookie. So,
Chocolate chip, please.
sure, absolutely. So yeah, it plays an important role. Let's just put it broadly in terms of feedback, right? Feedback is critical to uh, our ability to learn and change, right? The learning cycle isn't complete until there's some change. So, um, feedback, whether that be coaching or praise, plays the critical role in helping us understand that what we're doing is right, do more of it, or hey, what we're doing missed the mark. We need to make an adjustment
Yeah.
from there. And so, whether that feedback comes from peers, um, superiors, or from systems, right? Because systems can
Mm,
give us feedback
yeah,
too.
very good point.
Um, feedback plays a critical role.
Excellent. Really good. So, what do you think are the top, let's say, two skills and qualities that are crucial for success in someone in your role? If someone wanted to get into OpEx, we know curiosity is one of them. What other skills or qualities do you think are really important for someone to have to be successful?
Um, so listening, I think, is critical.
Listening?
Listening. That was totally
Gotcha.
unplanned. Yeah, you got me. Yeah, definitely listening is critical, right? Because you're going to be talking, again, as a support function. Um, you're in a customer service provider kind of relationship. So
Yeah.
it's really important that you can listen to your customers and understand what they're saying, because sometimes they're telling you things that they're not saying directly. So you have to be able to hear that. Um, Questioning is
Mm,
pretty critical. Being able to ask the right question. Um, Observation is critical as well. Um, those are pretty important. Aside from those three, I would look at those as certainly they can be developed, but I'm going to put those in a different bucket than things like being process oriented,
mm,
being analytical and logical, um, but um, you know but being improvement focused, being really, you know, having a strong desire to help others, um,
yeah,
you know,
big time.
is really critical for these kinds of roles. You can be taught how to do just about every other aspect of this particular job. It
Right.
really comes down to, you know, are you good with customers?
Yeah.
And can you bring a logical and almost a dispassionate view of what a circumstance is, so that we can bring some rational thinking to to a solution set.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. I think having a little bit of the human side, but also being logical and not bringing too much emotion into it. Um, Agreed. So I guess let's finish off here. I know we're already past time, but I love talking with you. What are your thoughts around AI or innovations or developments that are coming down the line for operational excellence, for optimizing a process? What do you think the future looks like?
Oh wow, what an awesome question. um, yeah, uh, so whatever I just said about being dispassionate, just put that on a back burner, right? Because now you're going to get the butt. Um, I think one of the great ironies that we're facing is that the more technology permeates what we're doing, the more humanity we're going to have to bring to our approach in applying that
Yes.
technology. Okay,
Yes.
so um, and I think that's going to be one of the more challenging things that we have to deal with. Um, Obviously, if you think back to some of the challenges that Google had, I think in the last year about some of the information it was returning in its AI algorithms based on some questions,
Yes.
you're obviously facing a situation where um, the power of that intelligence is going to be a function of the quality of the information that goes into it, and so um, and that's not unlike any other operational excellence activity that we would do for improvement, right? Our improvements are only going to be as good as our understanding of the data that went into that analysis.
Yeah.
So I think things like AI and technology are going to play an ever increasing role in allowing us to drive improvement and understanding faster. Um, but we're going to have to make sure that we apply it with a very critical eye, um, uh, and respect for the people who are impacted by whatever that technology is going to tell us. But
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of using these tools. They continue to astound me with
Same.
their power. So um,
Yeah, I know there's already one quality system that uses AI to help fill out all the fields, kind of like, almost like a human error prevention. Did you ask this right question? Did you fill out this form as expected? So it's going to be an interesting future.
I actually saw something this week, um, which was incredible. But or I saw an advertisement for it from some people that I know, and it is some AI technology to review procedures for error
Wow.
traps.
Hey, that's my idea.
um,
Someone's already ahead of me on that
yeah,
one.
so the ability to look at procedures, um, you know, from a natural language standpoint, to
Yeah.
look for ambiguities, inconsistencies, and places that create opportunities to hang up someone in the execution of that process. And so, it's like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So
it goes back to what you were talking about, the data you provided. You training a learning model to, understand the concepts of the right way to format a procedure, the right way to, you know, write instructions to drive down and, clarification issues or human error deviations. The more data you'll provide this, I see them be able to write procedures from the beginning. Here's a user manual. Write us an instructional procedure, that an operator can follow. After training this. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like. Hopefully, we still have a job. No,
well,
we
again,
will.
yeah, again, it goes back to, like I said,
Got to have the human.
the more we're relying on it, the more we're actually going to we're actually going to need humanity to be able to intervene, because the systems probably won't have that, or at least we'll have
Right.
a very pre-programmed sense of what that's supposed to be.
Yeah. So, last thing, what is the final piece of advice you would give someone who wants to get into OpEx? What is John Wilkes' message to future OpEx out there?
um, yeah, well, look, we've said it a number of times. Be curious. Uh, ask questions. Again, if you're passionate about improvement and like to help people, then a career in operational excellence, business excellence is probably something that you should give it a try. Um, but educate yourself. And here's an important thing. It's not just operational excellence, right? It's as we had said earlier, we help supply chain, we help manufacturing, we can help quality. So you can be incredibly interested in any one of those functional disciplines and have an operational excellence career inside of that,
Love
right?
that.
Operational excellence, again, it's more of it's a philosophy
Yes.
more than anything else. And so if you can bring that mindset inside of those functional areas, then there's something there for you. But get involved in networks, build your network, talk to people, and give it a try. I mean, that's the good thing about many of our careers is that as we've both demonstrated, it's not forever. You give it a try. If you don't like it, you go do something else. But like I said, if you're that kind of person, and you try it out, you're probably gonna really take to it.
Awesome. Well, it's been such a lovely discussion with you. Great tidbits today. You always make me so curious to continue to learn, and I'm just really grateful for your time today, John. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with BioBuzz.
My pleasure. Maybe we can do it again.
I would love to. Let's do a more human performance focused discussion. I'd love to hear kind of what you think about safety 1 and safety 2 and all the new the new things out there.
Awesome.
We'll talk about it. But again, thank you, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. And BioBuzz, thanks for joining in.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.